to her. And when she reprimanded him, he wiggled his bottom, and she felt very uncomfortable about it. And so I asked if I could look at his workbooks, and I found there were 2 workbooks where every drawing he got, he'd drawn football teams, all sorts of sports, and they all got outsized erections. And she'd never spotted them. She'd written on good try, Paul, on everything. And when I pointed them out to her, boy, was she red-faced. She said, I only looked at his spelling. This girl was sexually abused by a stepfather who was a prison officer. He was charged, he was convicted, but got off on a technicality, as they often do. And she had been drawing pictures like this for years and writing love letters to him on the brown paper bags that she had a school lunch in. And she would say, I am sorry. And what she was sorry for was he was feigning to be upset because she wouldn't let him penetrate. And, you know, she was only a little kid, but she eventually told her auntie when she was about 12, you'll notice she's armless and her drawings of him look like a penis, and she's written the dad on. Mum was totally taken in because she saw these love letters and thought, aren't I lucky that she loves him? You know, and he was the stepfather. This was a teacher. I was giving a session with teachers, and she came to me and said, would you look at this drawing? What do you think of it? Look at the mouth, look at the teeth. Now this was an 8-year-old, so it's obviously not an 8-year-old's level. And she said, what is it? And he said, this is a man with his pants down, and that's his dick going up to his chin. Do you think he's been abused? I said, I'll bet my next week's wages on it. What did you do? And she did what teachers often do. She went like this and said, I didn't do anything, I was so embarrassed. Okay, what's happened to the child now? He's been sent to special education. Thanks. That drawing was also his, and that was on the school wall. And when I pointed this out to the teachers that this was the same child, that was obviously the perpetrator, and that's his little self next to it. The school principal said, oh my God, he was brought to me in March for sexually abusing another child in the school toilet. What did you do about it? Oh, I just kept him in. I didn't let him go out for a week either. Obsession with genitals in drawings. This was dismissed by staff as boys will be boys. Now, I did a lot of work with Save the Children voluntarily. I've been to their projects overseas to see that you know, what they're providing with our taxpayers' money is what children actually need. And we built a school, and they gave me all these pictures, and they were all like this. And of course, the staff said, oh, Freda, you're just paranoid. Not long afterwards, they told me that these kids had been in a boy brothel. We knew that this one had been abused, and he went to his kindergarten on the Monday and showed the teacher what the abuser looked like. Mouthless though, look there. Grooming methods used by pedophiles you all need to know. There are 2 books by a woman called Carla Van Dam. Carla Van Dam. I got mine for $10 from Amazon. I think the postage cost more than the book. And she says that if only everybody knew about the grooming methods, children would be safe. First of all, they get to know the parents or the teachers or whoever is responsible for the children's safety. And they develop their trust. So that, as in the case of the guy who worked for Anglicare here and ran the Church of England Boys Society, parents will eventually relax and let their alarm signals subside. They tend to target single mothers because they can then offer the things that fathers could do without the sex. So the women think that all their Christmases have come at once because he can do everything and anything that the women need. He'll get their car repaired, he'll do some household maintenance, and they think they're really lucky, so lucky that their friends want to join in when he starts babysitting. And so he then gets access to others as well. So he investigates and fills the carer's needs, whatever they are, odd jobs man, childminder, everything. He'll offer to take the kids camping, fishing, and of course that's when the abuse occurs. I was once asked to go to a school in the south where they had 64 boys who'd been sexually abused by lodgers who had moved in with single parents and then provided babysitting for them and the parents' friends. And of course the kids were under the age when they could go to court, so all they did was move out and go to another house. And the teachers didn't know what to do about it. They rang, of course they reported it, and there were just so many that the families, they say, whatever it was then, DCW said, look, you're at the coalface, deal with it. And that was why they asked me to go. The thing to watch out for is an adult who plays at the child's own level or an adolescent level, and they become very popular with the kids. You know, they will kick balls around and do whatever the kids want to do, much more than a dad would, so they become very popular. And they make children feel special and loved deliberately, so they won't be rejected when sex is introduced. And they'll believe them when the guy says it's all right, it's safe, etc. They often provide valued treats, gifts or services that the parents can't afford. I knew one victim who became suicidal because he realised that he had put up with abuse for a bike, but in fact his mother had had a kitchen put in by this guy who was a Salvation Army bandmaster, supposedly giving this boy lessons, and he said, Freda, if he had been giving me lessons, I'd be in the Adelaide Symphony Orchestra now, and I can't even play an instrument. And then, of course, you've got those who abuse their authority using violence, control and terror, and that would include priests. They don't need to seduce children in the normal way because of the power, and it would include pedophile rings and close relatives who've got authority. So remember, if he seems too good to be true, he probably is. Step in and stop it now, which is difficult. Even if the child enjoys it, intervene and stop contact when somebody engages in excessive boisterous play involving touching, tickling, throwing the child around. Because tickling on the outside can easily go on the inside and then into pants. Massaging is the other thing to keep your eyes open for. Start massaging at the back of the neck, and of course that can move elsewhere. Even with parents in the room, it's happened. Be suspicious if they spend much of the time with kids and don't relate well to adults. If they're finding ways to be alone with a child and introduces secrecy with gifts, for example, and introduces sex talk or pornography. Now, some of you will know about the Protective Behaviours programme that was here, and I find that a lot of people are still using it. Not necessarily word for word, but certainly in Queensland, the police are still using it. We found back in 1990 that it did not stop or prevent child sex abuse. Why? Because it relies on children recognising unsafe feelings and recognising sexual touching as unsafe. We found that 43% of abused boys enjoyed fondling and enjoyed receiving oral sex. And when you talk about safety, they think of safety as road traffic, riding a bike with a crash helmet on and not going through the traffic lights at red. And as I said, pedophiles excel at making victims feel safe and special, and pedophiles in South Australia, when we introduced this programme here, got the language and started saying, you're safe with me, what I'm doing is safe. Protective behaviours doesn't say clearly what is wrong and reportable behaviour. And do not talk about good and bad touch because fondling may not feel bad. We only found that out really after I'd written the book and used wrong touch, used bad touch. Wrong touch is much, much better. Protective behaviours doesn't tell children which secrets they have to tell, and 78% of male victims thought their abuse was normal. It's vague yet complex. Messages have to be clear and explicit without being frightening. And New Zealand rejected it on day one when police tried to get it going there because they said that very thing is too complex, but yet it's too vague. It has to be explicit because child sex abuse is so complex. Institutions, schools should provide, and you should ask for if you're a parent, child protection policies written with parents and read by visitors before they're allowed to access children, including my student teachers. They should have to read the child protection policy before they're allowed in the classroom. If your kids are in school, ask if they've got one. Ask if you can see it. The private schools have got one, but I know of one that still hasn't learnt its lesson because I've said if you go and say my child has been sexually abused by a teacher, instead of going to police, it goes to the head of the school, then the head of the department, then the principal, then the bishop, the archbishop, and all. And of course that is how they got into trouble in the first place, isn't it? Schools should be providing community, parent and staff education to dispel the myths about disability, sexuality and abuse. Child protection programs should have repetition, practice and reinforcement of safety strategies, especially for the children that you're interested in. And they should provide trained, monitored supervisors that inadequate supervision and sloppy security assist sex, because sloppy security assists sex offenders. I have never known a school yet where child sex abuse has occurred when the security has not been lax. They pick these schools, they look for them and get in there. If the school has got a high concern for child protection, they'll go somewhere else. And you want staff and parents to get support. If not provided, the parents should ask why, and if necessary, report to school council, management or the education department or whoever's responsible. Challenges for you as carers. The challenges are when a child or young person has already learned to comply with adult demands, has developed a poor body image and poor concepts of personal space, doesn't know their rights, not given any choices, they become dependent on adults and lack opportunities for independence. If they've already been sexually abused, I'm afraid that your challenges are increased by that because you have to convince them that it wasn't their fault, that it happens to lots of other kids, and that if they've disclosed it, they are the most courageous kids in South Australia. If they've got low self-esteem, shame, guilt and confusion, of course abuse will add to it, and so we've got to try to counteract it. But also, if they've got overprotective families who do everything for them, and I do realise that it's easier sometimes to do everything for them, all of the above will increase the risk of abuse. Develop problem-solving skills, identify relevant problems, frame questions around it, using just suppose that or let's pretend. Just suppose that, what could you do? Just suppose that you got lost at the beach. Make it different situations, because different situations would require different responses. Suppose that a lady offered to take them home. Suppose that they're offered pills that would told they would make them feel great. When I was in Spain with my son, he was offered pills and told